Hi everyone, Jamie here. Welcome back to my very wet and very rainy garden. I don't know if you guys can see out the window, but we have a massive rainstorm here in Northern California, which is fantastic. I will take it. My plants are absolutely loving it. And Monty and I are in here in the office today hanging out. And I thought that I would go back to the Bang for Your Buck series that I started last week. And I have to say, I am just so happy. I'm tickled with how much you all liked the Bang for Your Buck Annuals video, because I love that. I love talking about this. I think it's so fantastic. Basically what it is when you go to the garden center and you're deciding between plants, what plants to buy for your garden, it's not always about which plant is cheaper or which plant is more expensive or which plant is bigger. It's about which plant can give you the best bang for your buck in the garden. And when we're talking about Bang for Your Buck Annuals, the criteria that I had for Bang for Your Buck Annuals are that it had to grow really, really fast. It had to bloom absolutely all season long. It had to be very easy care, good for beginners. And one plant had to replace multiple plants. Basically, if you have a Super Perennial Vista bubblegum, one of those is going to take the place of so many 6-pack bedding plants. I mean, you're going to have to buy a cart full of 6-pack bedding plants to equal one Super Perennial Vista bubblegum. And those of you who know, you said it in the comments, you totally agreed with me. It makes a huge difference buying the right plant. So now we're going to move on and we're going to talk about Bang for Your Buck Perennials. So whereas Bang for Your Buck Annuals was all about instant gratification, ASAP, blooms, Bang for Your Buck Perennials is a little bit different. It's about the long game. The question is not so much how fast is this plant going to grow in one season. It's how much value does this plant build in my garden over time. So when I'm thinking about the criteria for Bang for Your Buck Perennials, here's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for plants that establish well and get better every year. Perennials, you want them to come back every single year in your zone. You want them to get bigger and bigger. And bonus, you can divide them eventually after a couple years, and then you get even more plants in your garden. Talk about Bang for Your Buck. I also want perennials that bloom over a long period of time during the season. Of course, perennials are not going to bloom as long as annuals. It's just the nature of them. But I want them to have a strong presence in your garden, whether it's from the blooms or whether it's from the foliage. So I don't want a perennial. I don't think it's a very good Bang for Your Buck perennial if you plant it in your garden for blooms and it only blooms like 2 weeks or 3 weeks. That's great. There's a place for those, but not on this Bang for Your Buck list. Next, I want plants that are going to be able to handle difficult conditions in your garden, whether it's heat, whether it's drought, whether it's cold, whether it's bad soil or something like that. Whatever problems you have in your garden, you're going to really want to think and make sure that this perennial is going to be able to handle those conditions so that they can keep coming back year after year. It's kind of like the same thing as a beginner-friendly plant for the annuals Bang for Your Buck list. This is a beginner-friendly plant. You don't have to baby it. You don't have to worry about it. You don't have to protect it with Harvest Guard or anything like that. It's just going to keep coming back year after year. And finally, the most important criteria for Bang for Your Buck, one Bang for Your Buck perennial needs to take the place of multiple. So if I plant one, I want it to be as big, have as big of an impact as if I planted 3 of a different kind of plant. So quick side note, let's talk about what makes an annual and what makes a perennial. So a true annual is a plant that grows from seed, blooms, sets seed, and dies in one growing season. That's a true annual. But in our gardening community, we also call plants that die at the end of the season because of cold annuals as well, even though they're not really annuals. If they were in more temperate climates, they would overwinter. And so it's kind of a blurry line between annuals and perennials. Take, for instance, lantana. Here in Zone 9B, lantana is one of the ultimate perennials, right? It is such a great perennial. It's hardy in my zone. It grows up, it can grow up to 4 feet tall. It can grow into almost the size of a shrub. But for a lot of people that live in lower zones, lantana is a fantastic annual because it gets killed by the cold at the end of the season. So these lines are kind of blurry, just kind of, I always say refer back to your local garden center and ask them, is this an annual or a perennial for me? And that should be able to help you out. But if some of these are more likely annuals for you, I think that they're still going to be fabulous additions to your garden. If some of these are perennials for you, then good for you. You're going to get even more bang for your buck. So let's start off with probably my favorite perennial in my garden of all time. And this is Cat's Pajamas Nepeta. I love this plant, you guys, and every year I'm loving this plant more and more and more. It is so gorgeous. Here's the thing. It's zones 3 through 8. Proven winners. This is a proven winners plant, and they have rated it zones 3 through 8. I'm assuming because it doesn't do as well in more humid climates. I live in a very arid climate here in California. So those of you who live in zones 9 and 10 in more humid climates, let me know how you like Cat's Pajamas Nepeta. I have to say, it's fantastic. It is such a good plant. It comes back reliably every year. It gets about a foot tall and a foot wide, a little bit over a foot wide. It has these gorgeous blue flowers that bloom so long. You can go and you can shear them back about halfway through the season, and then they'll bloom again. It can handle our heat. It can handle dryness. There's bees all over it. The plant looks like it's alive at certain times of year. It is just such a fabulous plant. And I'm really excited because Proven Winners is constantly coming out with new varieties of Nepeta. They're coming out with one that's called Lemon Perfection. And apparently this one is supposed to bloom literally all season long, like literally nonstop all season long, which I'm really excited to try. But I have to say the OG Cat's Pajamas Nepeta, this is just a plant that, it's kind of quiet. It doesn't yell, it doesn't scream, but it just is so beautiful. And I find so many times that I go out to my garden and my attention is immediately focused on that one because of all the bee activity. And I just think it is just such a fabulous addition for your garden and a huge bang for your buck. The next variety that I think is a major bang for your buck in your garden for perennials is a salvia. It's a perennial salvia and it's called Living Large Big Sky. And this variety, and there's a new color coming out as well called Living Large Dark Sky that I have not tried yet, but I'm really excited to try. This is a big plant, you guys. So salvia are beautiful. There's a whole bunch of different kind of salvia and they're really gorgeous. This is a perennial salvia that's hardy zones 3 through 8. 3 through 8, I've grown it in my zone 9. It does perfect in my zone 9 garden. But this one is big. It's about 2.5 feet tall, 2.5 feet wide, and this perfectly emphasizes the point of one plant taking the place of multiple plants. So one Living Large Big Sky is going to take the place of 3 other regular perennial salvia in your garden. It's going to come back. I mean, it's hardy down to zone 3. It's a fabulous plant and it has the biggest blooms that you can imagine. The biggest blooms that I've seen on a salvia, to the point where when you look at it, you have to question yourself what plant you're actually looking at. It's kind of confusing as to what plant you're actually looking at. So those of you who live in lower zones, I think the Living Large series is a fantastic choice for your garden because it's going to keep coming back over and over again. Now, I love Rockin' Plain the Blue Salvia, and I know a lot of you love that variety. It was on my list of bang for your buck annuals, but this variety is only hardy down to a zone 7, and it's not as guaranteed to come back year after year as the perennial salvia, the Living Large variety. So it's just something to think about if you want to invest a lot in if you want to invest your money into plants that are going to reliably come back every year, then the Living Large Big Sky or Living Large Dark Sky is going to be great for you. And when I say these plants are big, these plants are big. And let me tell you, I planted them in my long border at the very end of my long border where I was having so many watering issues all season long. And this plant handled it. This plant could handle these drought conditions that I was unwillingly not realizing that I was putting on these plants, and it kept blooming even though it wasn't getting a lot of water in my hot zone 9B garden. So this is a fabulous plant. Again, zones 3 through 8. It is a good bang for your buck plant that if you buy one of these, it's going to make such a huge impact in your garden. So when I compile a list like the bang for your buck annuals and perennials and shrubs, or my best for the West plant list, or really any other plant list that I talk about on my channel, about, I would say like 90% comes from my experience in my own garden. And I think that's important, right? Because I'm the one who knows the best about how these plants do in my own garden, and I can talk about them. But I do like to talk to other plant professionals and get their input sometimes and see what they have to say, because not only it helps me give you all the right information, but it helps expand my horizons and it tells me what plants I should be trying. So when I was talking to Andrew Yeager, the marketing manager at Walter's Gardens, which is the perennial grower for Proven Winners, he is a plant nerd, you guys. He is absolutely a plant nerd, and I say that in the best way, but he was raving about a plant that I actually don't have a ton of experience with, and now I need more experience with it. And it's called Baptisia, specifically the Decadent series of Baptisia. And I'm sure a lot of you are going to say, oh, I know this series. I just don't have a lot of experience with it. But he was voting for getting Decadence Baptisia on this bang for your buck list. He says not only do they grow 3 to 4 feet tall and wide, but they are incredibly long-lived. So some perennials can be short-lived perennials. They can like a perennial can still be 2 years, like only 2 years, and it can still be considered a perennial. Most perennials, I don't know, like 5 years, I would say, is the amount of time that I think is normal for perennial. But apparently for the Decadent series of Baptisia, these guys can live to be about 100 years, which is crazy. Plus, they don't care about soil. They can be in absolutely the worst soil in your entire garden, and they're going to be perfectly happy. So I can already think of some areas in my long border that I want to plant some Baptisia in and see how it does, especially if it's going to be kind of a set it and forget it type plant, and I'll never have to worry about it for the next 100 years or whatever. I think that would be fantastic. And so I agree with Andrew. I think Baptisia definitely deserves a spot on the bang for your buck perennials list. Now, speaking of long-lived perennials, I think one that definitely deserves a spot on my bang for your buck list for perennials, and that is long-lived and can handle the heat and can handle poor soil and just blooms and blooms and blooms, is denim and lace Russian sage. I know I talk about this plant all the time, along with a bunch of other plants, but I talk about them all the time because I really think that they're fantastic and they deserve a spot on the bang for your buck list. So Russian sage is hardy zones 4 through 9, and it's going to give you that look, that beautiful look of lavender, you know, that airy kind of lavender blue blooms, but it's going to be hardy all the way down to zone 4, and it's going to be able to handle conditions that maybe lavender might not be able to handle. It's going to get about, I would say, 2 to 3 feet tall and 2 to 3 feet wide, and you don't have to do anything to it, right? Like the only thing you have to do is in January, February-ish, you have to cut it back so it can have some fresh new growth. But it is just such a fantastic plant that's going to live for so long, and you're going to get your money's worth out of buying this plant at the garden center. You're going to buy one plant and you're going to have it in your garden for years and years and years, and it's going to be big and it's going to be beautiful, and you're going to be so happy that you planted it in your garden. So while I love blooms, I think blooms are fantastic, there is also a spot for foliage and perennial foliage in your garden. And the next one is, I consider a foliage plant. Some people like the blooms. My friend Raphael at Park Winners, he likes the blooms to this plant. I personally don't. I cut them off. And this is Helen von Stein lamb's ear. And if you all don't have Helen von Stein lamb's ear in your garden, if you're going to buy one plant this year, I would say go buy Helen von Stein lamb's ear, because it does so well. It is so beautiful and so soft, and you can divide it like crazy. So you buy one Helen von Stein lamb's ear, and by next year you'll have 8, and the year after that you'll have 28, and so on and so on and so on. And you can really get the biggest bang for your buck. I think this is the most bang for your buck plant. I would say You don't even really have to buy it. Just go to your neighbor that has some, rip off a chunk, ask for permission, but rip off a chunk and then you're good and you can plant this plant in your garden. So it's zones, hardy zones 4 through 9. There's some, there's some people say 5 through 9, some people say 5 through 10, but kind of around that area. They get about a foot tall. They get wide because they spread. The stems kind of spread and they have roots coming out of the stems. So if you need to keep it in a certain spot, you can keep it in check. Now, if you do let this plant go to seed, a lot of people will complain about it reseeding itself all over your garden. I personally have never had that issue in my garden, probably because we're too dry here. I have not once seen it reseed itself, but if you live in a much more humid environment where you get some more summer rain, you might have some reseeding in this plant. So watch it and just know what you're signing up for if you're going to plant this plant in your garden. But I have to say, I have planted this plant year after year after year, and I have never had it reseed itself, not one time. The blooms are fine. They're just okay. They're purpley. The bees, the pollinators absolutely love them, but I like this plant for the foliage because of the silvery, fuzzy foliage. I think it is so gorgeous, and I use it almost like a ground cover, like a tall ground cover kind of, and I just think it deserves a spot on the best bang for your buck list because it's so easy to take care of. It's one of those plants that I don't have to worry about. I love the texture, and I can get so many plants out of one plant. It is just completely worth your money to add this plant to your list. So continuing on with foliage instead of blooms for interest in your bang for your buck perennials, I have to add in grasses. Grasses are such a fantastic addition, such a huge bang for your buck plant for so many reasons. I think it's the texture of grasses that have the most impact in your garden. You can plant one grass, one pennisetum, one panicum, and it just changes how your garden looks. It gives it a little bit of height. It gives it a little bit of movement. It's just some of my favorite things to add into a garden. Lately, my absolute favorite one is Niagara Falls panicum. The reason why I love this grass is because of the cool blue color. Blue grasses are they're just some of my favorite. And one of the things I absolutely love about it is the winter interest that you get for these grasses. You do eventually want to cut them back so you get nice, new, fresh foliage. And I just cut mine back in January, but I had them up all season long, all through December, all through most of January, and with the beautiful seed heads, and it was absolutely gorgeous. So talk about bang for your buck, and it's going to keep coming back again and again and again. One that's really popular where I live is a pennisetum, the rubrum, purple fountain grass. Some people call it red fountain grass. You can't beat this plant. It's just such a great plant. You can divide it again and again and again, right? Just like the Helen von Stein lambsyear. So you can get a major bang for your buck. And I have to say, they're not very expensive where I live. You can get a pretty good size one for only about $10. And they're going to fill up so much space in your garden very quickly. And they're going to get some fantastic interest at the end of the season when everything starts to lull out kind of in the late fall. That's when the grasses really shine. And then you start getting those late summer breezes that come through and the grasses start to sway. Grasses are just such a good bang for your buck. So anyway, grasses definitely had to be on my list. And if I had to pick one for you all to go out and spend your money on, I would say Niagara Falls panicum because I'm just absolutely obsessed with it. If you want to go crazy, you can get Vertigo pennisetum. That one, if you give it enough water, it can get like 9 feet tall. I had it in my last garden and I would give it drip, and then I would also give it some supplemental water, and I called it the monster. It was absolutely huge, and if I wanted to, I could divide it as many times as I wanted to, and I could have them all throughout my garden. I never ended up dividing it because it was just such a massive plant, and it started off in a 4-inch can. It was absolutely crazy. There are other grass-like plants, right? I mean, carex is definitely a grass that's really beautiful, and that's going to be evergreen for you and gorgeous. And then lamandra is another really beautiful plant that I'm getting really excited about lately. I have the Platinum Beauty variety, but there's other really gorgeous varieties, and those are evergreen grasses, so you don't actually ever cut those back, right? And I don't even think I don't think lamandra is technically a grass. No, Lamandra is not technically a true grass. It belongs to the asparagus family. Oh, I didn't know that, but it looks like grasses and it's really beautiful. So for bang for your buck in your garden, if you're looking to go out and buy just a couple plants instead of a full carload or truckload of plants, think about grasses. And I have to tell you, in the spring, grasses, they don't look like much, right? They really don't look like much is going on in that plant can, but just give it a couple months. Once the heat hits it, oh my goodness, it's just going to go absolutely crazy for you. And then you can just keep dividing and dividing and dividing, and you're going to be so very happy. So that is it for my bang for your buck perennials. Believe me, I have so many more I could have on this list, but I really wanted to keep it as short as I can, just so that you guys, when you're going out to the garden center, you have a really good idea of what perennials you want to put in your cart and take home and get the most bang for your buck out of these plants. So I want to know, what are your favorite bang for your buck perennials? What are the ride or dies? What are the ones that have been living a long time in your garden, bloom so well, you can divide, you just absolutely love them and think they're a great bang for your buck? Leave it in the comment section down below so we all can read it. And if you all didn't get a chance to see the Bang for Your Buck annuals video, I will link it at the end of this video in just a couple seconds. Go check that out and check out the comment section, because so many people had such great suggestions. It made me want to run out to the garden center as well. So I hope you all enjoyed this, and I hope you all have a chance to get in your garden today.